The emergency transmission crackled through the deep space communication array with desperate urgency. Ambassador Kethara of the Zalani Confederation pressed her three-fingered hands against the console, her normally pristine blue skin now pale with fear. Behind her, the command center buzzed with panic as her people tried to coordinate their failing defenses. "This is Ambassador Kethara of the Zalani Confederation, broadcasting on all emergency frequencies," she spoke into the transmitter, her voice trembling despite her efforts to remain composed. "We are under attack by the Vorthak Empire. Our worlds are burning, our fleets are scattered. If anyone can hear this message, we desperately need help." The Zalani had been a peaceful species for over 3,000 years. They had built their civilization on trade, diplomacy, and scientific advancement. Their ships were marvels of engineering, capable of faster-than-light travel and equipped with the most sophisticated sensors in known space. But they had no weapons. War was a concept they had abandoned long ago, believing that rational beings could always find peaceful solutions to their conflicts. The Vorthak Empire thought differently. They were conquerors by nature, a species that had turned warfare into an art form. Their massive battleships, each the size of a small moon, had appeared at the edge of Zalani space without warning. No negotiations. No demands, just pure, overwhelming destruction. Kethara watched through the viewing port as another of her people's beautiful crystal cities was reduced to glowing slag by Vorthak plasma bombardment. The attackers seemed to take pleasure in destroying everything slowly, methodically. They could have wiped out the Zalani in days, but instead, they were dragging out the destruction, savoring each moment of terror. "The Vorthak have already destroyed 7 of our 12 worlds," Kethara continued her broadcast. "We estimate we have maybe 72 hours before our remaining planets fall. We have nothing left to bargain with. We offer our knowledge, our technology, our eternal friendship to anyone willing to help us. Please, if there is any civilization out there with the power to stop this madness, we beg you to act." The transmission reached across the galaxy, bouncing between relay stations and communication networks. Most species that received it simply deleted the message. The Vorthak Empire was too powerful to challenge. Getting involved would only invite destruction upon themselves. A few sent token messages of sympathy, but no one offered actual help. Deep in the Sol system, the message was intercepted by a routine monitoring station orbiting Pluto. The human operator, a young woman named Sarah Chen, had been tracking standard shipping routes when the desperate broadcast appeared on her screen. She played it 3 times, her face growing more serious with each replay. "Captain Morrison," she called to her supervisor. "You need to hear this." Captain Morrison, a grizzled veteran of humanity's recent expansion into space, listened to the recording with growing interest. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years earlier, making them relatively new to the galactic community. Most alien species viewed them as primitive upstarts, barely worth notice. "How far out are they?" Morrison asked. "About 800 light-years from our furthest colony," Sarah replied. "Sir, should we forward this to command?" Morrison was already reaching for the priority communication channel. Within hours, the Zalani distress call was sitting on the desk of Admiral Rebecca Torres, the head of human fleet operations. She read through the translated message several times, studying the tactical data the Zalani had included about their attackers. The Vorthak Empire. Admiral Torres had heard whispers about them from other alien traders, a militaristic species that conquered worlds for sport, leaving nothing but ash in their wake. They had supposedly destroyed dozens of civilizations over the past few centuries. "Ma'am," her aide, Commander Jackson, said nervously, "the Zalani are 800 light-years away. That's outside our sphere of influence. And the Vorthak Empire. They're supposed to have fleets that could overwhelm half the galaxy." Admiral Torres stood up, walking to the massive display showing human space. Their territory looked impossibly small compared to the vast galaxy around them. Most alien species saw humanity as insignificant, a minor player barely worth acknowledging. "Commander, how long since we've had a proper field test of our new fleet?" "Since the Martian War Games about 6 months ago, ma'am." Admiral Torres smiled grimly. The Martian War Games had been humanity's largest military exercise ever, involving every ship in their fleet and testing new weapon systems that other species thought impossible. The results had been classified, but they had exceeded every expectation. "Send a message to the Zalani," she ordered. "Tell them help is coming." "Ma'am, with respect, what help? We don't have the ships to fight an empire." Admiral Torres turned to her aide, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Commander, you're thinking like every other species in this galaxy. You're thinking about fair fights and measured responses. But the Zalani didn't ask for a fair fight. They asked for help. And humanity has never been very good at doing things halfway." She activated the fleet-wide communication system. "This is Admiral Torres to all ships and stations. Initiate War Protocol 7. I want every available vessel prepared for immediate deployment. We have a job to do." Across human space, alarms began to sound. Ships that had been docked for maintenance suddenly swarmed with activity. Weapon systems that had only been tested in simulations were brought online. Most importantly, the ships that had been kept hidden from alien eyes began to emerge from their secret bases. The galaxy was about to learn something new about humanity. When humans went to war, they didn't just fight. They brought everything they had, and they fought like the survival of the universe depended on it. The Zalani had pleaded for help. Humanity was about to deliver total war. The Vorthak fleet hung in space above the dying world of Zalani Prime like vultures circling carrion. General Thrakul stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Death's Herald, watching with satisfaction as his bombardment fleet reduced another crystal city to molten glass. The Zalani were putting up no resistance whatsoever, making this conquest almost boring. "General," his communications officer reported, "we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the system. Long-range sensors suggest approximately 50 vessels." Thrakul's 4 eyes narrowed with interest. 50 ships was hardly a threat to his armada of 300, but it was curious. Most species in the galaxy knew better than to interfere with Vorthak operations. "Identification?" "Unknown, sir. The energy signatures don't match any species in our database." On the surface of Zalani Prime, Ambassador Cathara received an encrypted message that made her hearts race with hope. "All Zalani vessels and ground stations. This is Admiral Torres of the human fleet. We received your distress call. Help has arrived. Please clear all friendly vessels from combat zones immediately." Cathara had never heard of humans before, but she didn't care. Someone had answered their call. "All remaining ships, withdraw to minimum safe distance. Unknown allies are engaging the Vorthak fleet." High above the planet, 50 human vessels dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. To the Vorthak, they looked almost primitive compared to the sleek alien designs they were used to. The human ships were angular, utilitarian things covered in armor plating and bristling with weapons that seemed crude by galactic standards. General Thrakul laughed when he saw them. 50 ships against 300? These humans must be suicidal. Open a channel." The main screen on the Death's Herald flickered to life, showing a human female in a crisp military uniform. Admiral Torres looked directly at Thrakul with calm, measuring eyes. "This is Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. You will cease all hostile actions against the Zalani Confederation and withdraw from their territory immediately." Thrakul's laughter grew louder. "Human, your species is unknown to us, but your stupidity is remarkable. You have 50 ships. We have 300. Leave now, and we will merely enslave your worlds instead of destroying them. Admiral Torres didn't blink. General, you seem to be under the impression that this is a negotiation. It isn't. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal, or we will remove you forcibly. Remove us? Thrakel gestured to his massive fleet. With 50 primitive ships? 30 seconds, Torres repeated calmly. Thrakel cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. Show these humans what happens when inferior species challenge the Vorthak Empire. All ships, open fire. 300 Vorthak warships turned their weapons toward the human fleet. The space between them lit up with enough firepower to shatter moons. Plasma bolts, energy beams, and fusion torpedoes created a wall of destruction that should have vaporized the human vessels in seconds. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships simply didn't die. Shields holding at 97%, reported the tactical officer aboard the human flagship Indomitable. All ships report minimal damage. Admiral Torres studied the tactical display with professional interest. Impressive firepower, but their targeting systems are predictably crude. All ships. Return fire. Show them what human engineering looks like. The human fleet opened fire, and the Vorthak learned their first lesson about humanity. Humans didn't just build weapons to win battles. They built them to end wars. The human ships unleashed weapons that defied galactic understanding. Kinetic accelerators fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Plasma cannons created temperatures that rivaled the cores of stars. Most terrifying of all were the antimatter torpedoes, each one carrying enough destructive power to crack a planet's crust. In the first salvo, 12 Vorthak ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged. They were there one moment and gone the next, leaving only expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Impossible, Thrakel roared. Our shield should have stopped those weapons. His science officer was frantically working at his console. General, these humans, their technology is beyond anything in our database. Those kinetic projectiles punched through our shields like they weren't even there. The energy yields from their weapons they're using antimatter as a standard munition. Admiral Torres watched as the Vorthak fleet began to break formation, their perfect battle lines dissolving into chaos as captains tried to understand what was happening to them. Tactical, target their command ships. Let's remove their ability to coordinate. The human fleet moved with mechanical precision. Each ship knew exactly where to be, exactly when to fire. There was no wasted motion, no unnecessary dramatics. They fought like machines built for one purpose, the complete destruction of their enemies. General, we're losing ships faster than we can target theirs, the tactical officer reported. 47 vessels destroyed, 19 severely damaged. The humans have lost none. Thrakel watched in growing horror as another wave of antimatter torpedoes tore through his fleet. These humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating a level of technological and tactical superiority that shouldn't exist. How had such a powerful species remained hidden until now? Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet. Admiral Torres appeared on screen again, looking completely calm despite the battle raging around her. General Thrakul, you now have approximately 230 functional ships remaining. I'm going to give you one more chance to withdraw peacefully. This is impossible, Thrakul snarled. No species could have developed such advanced weapons without the rest of the galaxy knowing. Torres almost smiled. General, you're making the same mistake every bully makes. You assume that because someone doesn't fight back immediately, it's because they can't. Humanity has been watching the galaxy for 50 years. We've seen species like yours destroy peaceful civilizations over and over again, so we prepared. Another salvo from the human fleet erased 8 more Vorthak ships. We didn't build a fleet to explore or trade, Torres continued. We built a fleet to end threats like you, permanently. You have 10 seconds to begin withdrawal before we demonstrate what human total war actually looks like. Thrakul looked at his tactical display. In less than 15 minutes, he had lost over 60 ships while inflicting 0 casualties on the human fleet. This wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. "All ships, retreat to hyperspace," he commanded. But as the surviving Vorthak vessels began to turn away, something new appeared on their sensors. The 50 human ships they had been fighting weren't alone. Hyperspace signatures began appearing throughout the system as more human vessels dropped out of FTL. Not dozens more, not hundreds more, thousands more. The second wave of the human fleet emerged from hyperspace like a tidal wave of metal and death, battleships the size of cities. Carriers launching clouds of fighters armed with miniaturized antimatter weapons. Dreadnoughts that made the largest Vorthak vessels look like toys. General Thrakul stared at the tactical display in absolute terror. The humans hadn't sent a rescue mission. They had sent an entire battle fleet. And based on the energy readings, these ships made the first 50 look like scout vessels. "General," his communications officer whispered, "we're receiving another transmission from the humans." Admiral Torres appeared on screen one final time. "General Thrakul, let me be very clear about something. You came to Zalani space to commit genocide. That means this isn't just a rescue mission anymore. As of right now, the Vorthak Empire is at war with humanity, and humans don't fight limited wars." The massive human fleet began to advance, their weapons powering up with energy readings that made the space around them shimmer with barely contained destruction. "Tell me, General," Torres said quietly, "how many worlds does your empire control?" 3 months later, the once mighty Vorthak Empire was nothing more than a historical footnote. The speed and completeness of their destruction had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy that were still reverberating across civilized space. Ambassador Cathara stood in the rebuilt Crystal Gardens of New Zalani City, watching human construction crews work alongside her people to restore what the Vorthak had destroyed. The humans had not only saved her civilization, they had helped rebuild it, sharing technology that would advance Zalani society by centuries. "Ambassador," her aide approached respectfully, "Admiral Torres has arrived for the ceremony." Cathara nodded, still amazed by how much had changed. When the human fleet had appeared 3 months ago, she had hoped for a miracle. What she received was something beyond her wildest dreams, the complete and utter annihilation of the most feared military empire in the galaxy. The ceremony hall was packed with representatives from dozens of worlds, species that had lived in fear of the Vorthak for generations. They had all come to witness something unprecedented, the formal alliance between the Zalani Confederation and the Human Federation. Admiral Torres entered the hall wearing a simple dress uniform, accompanied by a small honor guard. She looked exactly as she had during their first communication, calm, professional, and radiating quiet confidence. But Cathara now understood what lay beneath that composed exterior. "Admiral Torres," Cathara greeted her formally, "on behalf of the Zalani Confederation and the 17 worlds you saved from Vorthak occupation, I offer you our eternal gratitude." The audience murmured in appreciation. 17 worlds. In their 3-month campaign, the humans had not only destroyed the Vorthak fleet, but had systematically liberated every world the Empire had conquered, freeing species that had been enslaved for decades. Admiral Torres accepted the formal thanks gracefully, but Cathara could see something in her eyes, a weight that came from the decisions she had made. "The pleasure was ours, Ambassador. The Zalani have proven themselves valuable allies and friends." After the public ceremony, Torres and Cathara met privately in the ambassador's office. The formal atmosphere melted away as they sat together, two leaders who had witnessed the realities of war. "I have to ask," Cathara said quietly, "what happened to General Thrakul? The reports say his flagship was captured, but there haven't been any announcements about his fate." Torres was quiet for a long moment, He's alive. He's being held on a human prison station along with about 12,000 other Vorthak war criminals. We're not executioners, Ambassador, but they will spend the rest of their lives thinking about what they did. And their empire, their homeworlds, the Vorthak military no longer exists, Torres said simply. Their fleet is destroyed, their weapons facilities have been dismantled, and their government has been reorganized. The civilian population is unharmed, but they're no longer a threat to anyone. Cathara studied the human admiral's face. In 3 months, you dismantled an empire that terrorized the galaxy for centuries. How is that possible? Torres stood and walked to the window, looking out at the human workers, helping to rebuild the city. Ambassador, can I tell you something in confidence? Of course. When humanity first reached the stars 50 years ago, we were terrified. We sent out probes and discovered that the galaxy was full of intelligent life, but also full of species like the Vorthak, conquerors, slavers, genocidal empires that destroyed civilizations for sport. We realized that if we revealed ourselves too early, we would either be enslaved or exterminated. She turned back to Cathara. So we stayed hidden. We watched. We learned. And we prepared for the day when we would have no choice but to fight. You've been preparing for war for 50 years? We've been preparing for survival, Torres corrected. Do you know what humanity's greatest advantage is, Ambassador? It's not our technology, though that helps. It's not our tactical abilities, though we're good at those too. Our greatest advantage is that when we decide something is unacceptable, we don't stop until it's fixed. Cathara thought about the Vorthak Empire, reduced from a galactic superpower to a footnote in history in just 3 months. Is that what you call total war? Total war is what happens when humanity decides that something needs to stop existing, Torres said quietly. The Vorthak Empire decided to commit genocide. That made them incompatible with a civilized galaxy. So we removed them. But surely other species knew about your capabilities. Your technology is centuries ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Torres smiled grimly. Ambassador, you're still thinking in terms of how other species wage war. Fair fights, proportional responses, rules of engagement. Humanity doesn't do any of that. When we go to war, we win. Completely, permanently, and with overwhelming force. She activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Right now, there are 87 human fleets patrolling the major hyperspace routes. Our sensor networks monitor every inhabited system in known space. Our shipyards are producing vessels faster than the rest of the galaxy combined. And the ships you saw at Zalani Prime? Those were our patrol vessels, not our main battle fleet. Cathara's eyes widened. How many ships do you actually have? Enough, Torres said simply. The point isn't the numbers, Ambassador. The point is that humanity has been watching species like the Vorthak destroy innocent civilizations for 50 years. We finally had enough. There was a soft chime from Cathara's communication console. Ambassador, her aide's voice came through. You have an urgent message from the Galactic Council. Cathara activated the message, and the image of Chancellor Vex Ani appeared. The elderly Thraxian leader looked deeply troubled. Ambassador Cathara, I must speak with you and Admiral Torres immediately. The Council has received disturbing reports about human military capabilities. There are concerns that humanity may pose a threat to galactic stability. Torres stepped into the transmission's view. Chancellor Vex Ani, this is Admiral Torres. What concerns? Admiral, in 3 months you have completely destroyed an empire that held dozens of worlds. Your technology appears to be centuries beyond anything we previously knew existed. The Council is unsettled by the implications of your military power. Torres was quiet for a moment, then spoke with deadly calm. Chancellor, Let me make something very clear. Humanity has no interest in conquest or expansion. We never wanted to reveal ourselves at all, but we will not stand by and watch peaceful species be slaughtered by empires like the Vorthak. But surely you understand our concerns. I understand your concerns perfectly, Torres interrupted. You're afraid that humanity will do to you what the Vorthak did to others. Let me put your fears to rest. Humanity doesn't attack innocent species. We don't conquer for resources or territory. We don't enslave populations or destroy civilizations for sport. Her voice grew harder. But if any species decides to follow in the Vorthak's footsteps, they will discover that we take genocide very personally. The Chancellor's image flickered as he processed this statement. And if the Council were to demand restrictions on human military activities? The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Torres smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Chancellor, the Galactic Council is welcome to make demands, but you should understand that humanity doesn't recognize any authority higher than the protection of innocent life. We've spent 50 years building a fleet specifically to end threats like the Vorthak. If the Council decides to become such a threat... She left the sentence hanging, but the implication was crystal clear. Chancellor Vexani was quiet for a long moment. I see. Thank you for your candor, Admiral. The Council will consider your position. The transmission ended, leaving the room in silence. Admiral, Cathara said finally, you just threatened the Galactic Council. No, Ambassador. I informed them of reality. Humanity doesn't make threats. We make promises. Torres turned back to the window, watching her people work alongside the Zalani to rebuild what war had destroyed. The galaxy has lived in fear of empires like the Vorthak for too long. That ends now. Not because humanity wants to rule, but because we refuse to let innocents suffer when we have the power to stop it. Cathara looked at this human admiral who had saved her people and realized something profound. The Zalani had pleaded for help against an impossible enemy. Humanity had responded not with a rescue mission, but with a fundamental reshaping of galactic power. The age of genocidal empires was over. The age of humanity had begun. And somehow, despite everything she had witnessed, Cathara found that thought deeply comforting. Because she had seen what happened when humanity decided something was unacceptable. They didn't just fight it. They ended it.